Monster Hunter Wilds is a Game of the Year contender. Maybe it was. It had one of the most successful launches, being met to critic and user acclaim. Every roar shakes your speakers, every clash of weapons has weight. A lot of outlets called it a step forward for the franchise, and to be fair, it is in a lot of ways. There's a real sense of atmosphere in the world that just didn't exist before. Some of the early set-piece hunts are legitimately incredible. When the systems actually function the way they're supposed to, it feels like one of the most dynamic games Capcom has ever made. Still though, there are some missing features that do feel strangely absent, along with a lack of content in areas, a weak story, and just downright stupid microtransactions. But the sheer scale, the weather system, the biome transitions, the seamless monster behavior, the engaging combat, the beautiful art direction, and top-tier monster animations, there was a lot to praise here day one. Then we get to the technical side of this game. Performance, visuals, all of that fun stuff. And unfortunately, Monster Hunter Wilds has been infamously a total disaster on this front, especially on PC. This was right around launch back in February from Polygon. This headline really summarizes how this game launched. My air fryer is more optimized than this. Monster Hunter Wilds players are suffering from performance issues. Players report crashes, low frame rates, and polygonal character models. And this is the monstrosity they're talking about, and this is not an isolated incident, as there's many other screenshots of just these graphics. I don't even know how to describe it. It looks like almost PS1 era. It really is astonishing how unoptimized this game was launched by Capcom, who clearly they knew that this was going to be broken. That's why when you see all these statements like what we saw with Mind's Eye recently, we're heartbroken the game has launched this way, they knew it was launching this way. It's total bullshit when they put out these statements. But they also say in this article from Polygon, many of the graphical issues that were present during the beta playtest, because yes, this existed a lot longer before launch day, are still present in the final game, and players aren't happy about it. And might I add, this was a couple of months before launch when the beta was going on. Capcom did release a statement saying that we are committed to ensuring the quality of the final product, and yeah, that never happened. And unfortunately, we're a couple of months removed from this, and it's still pretty much the case with the game. But we did see articles like this at the time coming from Eurogamer, Digital Foundry, the technical guys who really test out all out of these games. Monster Hunter Wilds, we can't recommend the PC version. Substantial technical problems must be addressed. And they wrote in their analysis that it makes for a confusing PC release with staggeringly poor performance on lower-end graphic cards, to the extent that we don't recommend the game at all in these systems. And they went on to mention that like any casual user, they used the game's default detected settings and set DLSS to balance mode at 1440p on the RTX 4060. Loading up the game presented more issues with PS3 level texture quality. I had to actually honestly argue it's worse than PS3 if we're being honest, but and many shots and many textures that looked like they had loaded incorrectly. One character's white coat was rendered multicolor by mosaic artifacts due to poorly configured texture compression. After getting character control following the intro cutscenes, each turn of the camera was greeted by noticeable stutters, and I feel like that has almost defined this generation, the stuttering problem. It's prevalent with Unreal games on PC and unoptimized monstrosities like this, unfortunately. But they go on to mention this last paragraph that I'm going to go over. They say, back on the RTX 4060 with medium textures in place, despite lacking the huge stutters we had before, the results still are not great. The actual texture quality is now reminiscent of games from the early 2000s, and the frame rate was still dippingly noticeably with a hit to frame health when standing in place and turning the camera. If we turn the camera extremely gradually, the sinusoidal rhythm we experienced previously becomes smoother as frame health improves. This is a very odd performance characteristic, in which is essentially an empty desert with tiled sand textures, and not something we'd expect to see in any game, let alone a AAA release in the big year of our Lord 2025. And unfortunately, Capcom, Naughty Dog, Rockstar, and so on and so forth, all these major publishers investing hundreds of millions of dollars in these games, but optimization always tends to just not be there, especially for PC ports. It's just a prevalent problem, and this AAA games industry doesn't seem to really care at all about stopping this. But Digital Foundry also had a video on this, and this was kind of a summarization of the issues.
Measured behavior is the most important thing. Any lower end GPU like the RTX 4060 will have this extreme performance dipping.
Yeah, that dipping is just unacceptable.
As a result, I cannot recommend playing this game on GPUs of a similar compute level to this one, unless you're fine with these big swings in performance for doing something so basic.
Is.
I measured the same issue on an RTX 2070 Super. I measured the same issue on an AMD RX 5700, and I would say it probably happens on an Intel GPU, but
Yeah, and honestly, this is just totally unacceptable. And rightfully so. A lot of people are wanting their money back. They wanted answers. They wanted, Capcom to come forward saying they're at least going to fix this, because, I mean, that's the mentality of this AAA games industry. Well, fix it eventually. But we did eventually get a statement from Capcom. This actually came upon release day, and, maybe some of you are thinking it's going to be some statement, some generic nonsense saying that we'll fix it eventually. We're working on patches. We're working on updates. That's just not what happened here. As this VGC article says, they responded to performance issues on PC, the serious performance issues that are plaguing many players at launch, and unfortunately, they took a note out of Todd Howard's playbook, and this is all they said. Monster Hunter status, this is their, their support page, and they said, if you're experiencing any initial issues with Wilds on Steam, please try updating your graphics driver. I hate when they do that. Turning off compatibility mode and then readjust your settings. Almost putting those issues on you, the player, for your rig, which it really takes away from, the poor optimization. They're not even taking any ownership of this. And as from what I've been able to gather, this is the only official statement in any capacity that they've said about these performance issues and the fact that they launched an unfinished, unoptimized experience. And the game has suffered for it. You can see that on Steam charts. I mean, look at this. 5,500 players just an hour ago. It peaked at under 17,000. This is crazy for a game that just launched a couple months ago. And for comparison's sake, Monster Hunter World, which did not launch day and date for what it's worth, it launched on console, I think, a number of months before. But when it did launch on PC, it launched to an all-time peak of 330,000 players. And it took a couple months for it to slowly come down. It launched again, around August time, I believe, and then just a couple of months later, by the end of the year, it was still around 100,000 players. That is a healthy player base, and a lot of people were engaged with the endgame content, and this was a powerful experience, and even to this day, just massively positive experience all around, very positive reviews, probably one of the best Monster Hunter games to date. And then you look at Wild, and I just think it's just really crazy the fact that this game had such a positive impressions from reviewers. Most of them obviously play it on console, but 1.2 million players at launch, and almost all of them are just completely done with this game. They disappeared within a month. It had halved, and then now here we are. It's slowly, well, it didn't slowly, it fell off a cliff here from 100,000 and then down to 20,000. And there's some new content coming, but obviously on PC many players are just checked out, and there's no reason to continue playing with this game until Capcom comes forward with any indication that they're actually going to fix this game. And right now there isn't that indication. But then we get to this. So this is the main piece of this, video. It's just the fact that Wilds has collapsed. It has 1% of its launch players, 82% negative reviews, and I think that really says a lot about how Capcom just doesn't care about their player base, unfortunately. And it's not like this is just reserved to the performance and the visual issues that I talked about a second ago that have plagued this experience. There's also the fact that this game is missing some features and content that many people thought should have been there, and this is brought up in this Forbes article. It says that, speaking from my personal experiences, Paul Tassi, as someone who's sunk maybe 10 total hours into playing Monster Hunter games, I found myself reaching the end, grinding the best gear, and running out of stuff to do relatively quickly into what was supposed to be the end game. Despite some new monsters and new difficulty increases, it's just not enough, and so fans are headed back to Monster Hunter World. And you can see that with those numbers, in which, it has 26,000 players, just the peak there, versus Monster Hunter Wilds, which is standing at around 16,000, 17,000 and declining more and more. And this is just another example that there's many different threads and articles talking about it, but Wilds is missing various content, and its endgame for many people's eyes has been weak so far, and that is definitely a contributor to why this game is struggling, but definitely doesn't seem to be the core issue here. But it is worth mentioning there has been some leaks. There's strong indication that a new title update is coming with new content, but unfortunately, again, no indication that they're solving any of the massive performance and visual issues that have struck this game since it launched back in February. And people are absolutely pissed about this, and it's brought up in this Forbes article. It says that the first, and this is the big issue everybody's talking about is the fact that PC performance is horrible, and for many, seemingly getting worse over time, with Capcom's fixes failing or not coming fast enough even months after release. And in my eyes, that is absolutely unacceptable. I think we live in a mentality now with this industry in which we just accept the fact that these games continue to launch broken, and it's like, okay, we're just going to be the beta testers. But that mentality is getting just more and more releases like this, and you can almost sense that these AAA executives just do not respect their communities, their players, and this is the only way to protest. It's by going on Steam and review bombing this game, because yes, it does impact sales, and it does make many players just feel like, okay, or potential players say, I'm not going to bother with that anytime soon. And that is on the developer, the publisher, Capcom, to change that. And so far, again, we're waiting to hear something from them. And then here we have the Steam page, and oh my god, overwhelmingly negative. 17% of the 10,000 user reviews in the last 30 days are positive. Overall score mixed. Again, compare that to Monster Hunter World. Again, 89% positive based on 300,000, and yeah, very positive, versus this game, which is mixed, and all of it is because of how bad of a port that this is. And this is something that will plague this game until Capcom decides to fix it, and even then, this stuff will probably still stay there. And these user reviews are absolutely fucking brutal. As of May 28th, after 250 hours of gameplay, the game will no longer boot up. That's just crazy. I've tried reinstalling, deleting shader caches, uninstalling reframework, which is basically needed to run the game smoothly at all, rolling back my NVIDIA drivers, reinstalling a game, restarting my PC a dozen times, and it doesn't work. And there's no option at that point. You cannot refund the game. You just have a broken experience until Capcom does anything, and again, this is just what players are dealing with. Another individual, 77 hours. You will need to have an expensive rig to play this game smoothly. And even then, there seems to be many of those who have those rigs that are still encountering many issues. So that's not a given. Even some of these positive reviews, 180 hours, good gameplay, but badly optimized on PC. Not a good endgame, no Elder Dragons. And yeah, there's some of the core complaints, some of the other issues that people are talking about. Capcom released another unfinished mess of a game, this time above MSRP, and obviously withheld finished content to pad the release schedule. 340 hours on record, not recommended. Another one, 113 hours, fantastic game ruined by poor performance. It is playable for me only because of a powerful machine. However, I suggest to stay clear until they fix performance. Every patch is making the game performance worse, and it is shocking that it has got that bad. And this is why this has to be talked about, because Capcom clearly knew that this game was not going to be released in a finished state on PC, and they just did it anyway. And unfortunately, the support that they've given since has been lackluster. And their communication has been pretty much, well, let's just call it what it is, has been dog shit. Monster Hunter Mild, way too short, too easy, too streamlined, too expensive, and runs like trash. 35 hours. Oh god. In general, not a bad game, but compared to other releases in this series as well as other similar games, it's lacking. This is another person, 300 hours. Save your money. This game needs to cook for an additional 1 to 2 years and get an expansion. If you really want to try out Monster Hunter, then go Monster Hunter World. Another person, 100 hours. 80 hours almost. Since the recent updates, the game is a stuttery mess. I have a pretty decent setup, and prior to this, it was running smoothly, but my god, WTF. That is the current state of Monster Hunter Wilds on PC. These are the Steam reviews, overwhelmingly negative. Only 17% are positive, and that is just astonishing. This is some of the comments. Again, this has not just been something that is reserved to Steam. We're seeing many people on the subreddit complaining about it as well. Monster Hunter Wilds is a great game, but the review bombing is justified. I've almost 300 hours into the game. I've basically done all there is to do, and it's a great experience, but the optimization has been consistently horrible for months now. I even upgraded my PC parts to assure that the specifications were met, and it still runs like shit. LOL for $70. That's another big thing that's not being talked enough about. We're seeing all these games, AAA games being, they went from 60 to 70, and then now 70 to 80s. That'll be the next thing. We're already seeing that with a couple of experiences, but we're not seeing an improvement on the optimization front. All we're getting is just more expensive games and nothing at all improved, and I just find that even more unacceptable. You can have an incredible game, but especially for an action game that requires precise movement and quick reactions, performance is more important than ever and incredibly frustrating. I really do hope they listen to the feedback and finally prioritize optimization. No indication of that yet. There's a lot of effort to put in this game. It's like a movie having great actors, great music, great attention to detail, and the script is horrible. And then other users just saying Yeah, this is absolutely sad that this has happened. But look, this is just the AAA games industry. We have been constantly seeing this. I will say most of the time with these, disaster launches, it's also accompanied by the fact that the game has many other issues connected to the actual overall quality. I mean, we just saw that recently with Mind's Eye, but the last time we saw this, in which we have this critically acclaimed game at launch, getting massively positive reviews as we see on OpenCritic and Metacritic. I mean, 89 top critic average, that's pretty darn good. Last time we saw that, I think it was a couple of years ago, with Star Wars Jedi Survivor. And yeah, it was hit with massively negative reviews because Respawn and Electronic Arts launched that game broken, and it took months upon months for it to eventually get into a pretty decent state. And it was not just a couple of weeks or months until it got fixed with Jedi Survivor on PC, because look, this is Digital Foundry 9 months ago. Patch number 9, improved but still very poor. And this is what they were saying about that game at the time.
Here I've locked the game using triple buffered VSync to 30 FPS, but just running through Kobo looks disastrously unsmooth. Animations are skipping, and the camera covers an uneven distance all the time.
Which is the exact issues that I was running into. And it wasn't even just PC. I believe that I played this on the Series S or PlayStation 5. This was the same exact issue I was running into. Again, just the optimization of this AAA games industry seems to be getting worse and worse. But then another infamous example is The Last of Us Part 1, getting pummeled on Steam. Again, around the same time too, around in 2023. A technical disaster, which feels like a terminology, a phrase that we've been using with so many games the last couple of years. And then here we have Digital Foundry once again just showing off how poorly
CPU
optimized
utilization
this is.
going on here per core. Each core reads and thread reads the exact same here on my Ryzen 5 3600. But just normal walking around this intro area, completely CPU limited,
Yeah, that's
down
insane.
into the 40s
Look at
already.
What?
And it's just
I see it, yeah.
It's just 40s, 45 FPS right here. CPU is being hammered into dust.
Flat 60 here on the PS5.
Yeah,
Like I said, these ports, it's just totally unacceptable that this just keeps on fucking happening. And for what it's worth, we did see that The Last of Us Part 2 did improve. This was The Last of Us Part 2, but it still, again, had issues.
One issue that was visible on the PC was how shadows at times would load in far too close to the camera, like you can see here while running forward. This is especially odd to see in the maxed out PC code, as the PS4 Pro back compat code running on PS5 even doesn't have this issue.
Like I said, that definitely was an improvement over The Last of Us Part 1, but I don't know, just the state of these ports, it just continues to be problematic. And with what's happening with Monster Hunter Wilds and Capcom's lack of communication and the patches that they're putting out, it truly is unacceptable. And yeah, they are paying for it in terms of their player base, which is just saying, I've had enough, I'm moving on. And also many of which that have said, I'll just go back to Monster Hunter World. Now, obviously, there are other contributors to all of this, the fact that the endgame just doesn't have enough going for it. There's a lot of missing features, content from World to Wilds that a lot of people kind of find astonishing. But yeah, this is the disaster that Capcom is dealing with right now, and they just don't seem to be caring too much, and that really is unfortunate for a player base that really is waiting for answers and really wanting a smooth experience. But seems like in this day and age, and in 2025, that's really hard to come by with many different AAA developers and publishers. But anyway, what do you make of Monster Hunter Wilds? Have you checked it out? Do you plan to, or are you steering away because of these performance issues? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. But thank you for watching. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this video, or if you found any informative value. Consider subscribing for more videos like this. I'll see you later.